This video is sponsored by Artlist, and all of the music that you hear in this video is from their annual subscription plan. There's some great music on there, not only for online content creators, but also for commercial purposes as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more later in the video. Before we can really do this video, there's something that I need to do. What's up, my man? How are you?
How's it going?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to meet you in person.
Here it is, 1635. There you go, brother.
Nice. What do you think of it?
Dude, that lens, like, if I had one lens, it would be that one for sure.
And compared to, because you have the Tamron, this one, the 70-28 too,
yeah,
right?
I like the Tamron, and I'll probably be getting rid of the 1635 because of the price difference. But like, if I could hold on to one lens forever, it'd be that one, man.
All right, we have officially acquired the Sony G Master 16-35 f2.8 from my man Jacob there. Now we can officially get on with the ultimate wide angle full frame lens comparison for Sony. All right, so we got 5 lenses here. Wait a second. All right, so we've got 4 lenses here, all full frame and all in that ultra wide zoom range. We've got the Sony G Master 16-35 f2.8, Sony Zeiss 16-35 f4, the Tamron 17-28 2.8, and this big guy over here is the Sigma 14-24 f2.8. Now, it would take me much longer than you would want to watch in this one video to do a full review on all 4 of these lenses. So what we're gonna do is more of like a general comparison of what these all have to offer and why you might want to go with one or the other. We're going to cover price, size, weight, focal range, build quality, and we'll even do a little bit of quality test in the end, but I will also leave some stuff in the description if you want to go check out some other videos that do more in-depth looks at all of these lenses. All right, let's start things off with price. So first we've got the Sony G Master, which comes in at $2,200, being not only the most expensive of the bunch, but also twice as expensive, actually more than twice as expensive as the cheapest one, which is the Tamron, coming in at only $900. Then very close in the middle, we've got the Sony Zeiss f4, which is $1,350, and then the Sigma, which is $1,400. As far as size and weight goes, the Tamron is coming in as the smallest and lightest at only 420 grams, very similar in length to the Sony Zeiss, which comes in at 518 grams. And then surprisingly enough, the G Master comes in at 680 grams, whereas the Sigma comes in at 795 grams, making it the heaviest of the bunch. That is a whole lot of lens. As far as the length, they're not that far off, but the G Master and the Sigma are a little bit taller than the Tamron and the Zeiss. If you've already got a bunch of filters, the Tamron takes a 67mm thread, the Sony Zeiss takes a 72mm thread, the G Master comes in with an 82mm thread, and the Sigma doesn't have a thread. This is one of the things that stands out about the Sigma. Because the element on the front is so bulbous, this lens hood is actually built right on. You cannot take this off, and therefore you can't have screw-on filters. You have to get some kind of a system to go on the front for square filters or however you want to do it. But that being said, I believe that that is actually built so that you can have some kind of filter system in the back. However, I don't have any kind of a filter that would go in there, so I have no way to test it. And of course, if you already own a bunch of filters, that doesn't really help you. All right, let's talk about range. The two kind of standard ones, or what I would consider the standard range, would be the 16-35. Now we've got the G Master f2.8 and the Sony Zeiss f4 that are both at that. Tamron coming in at 17, so slightly not as wide, to 28, so slightly not as telephoto. And I'm 90% sure that the reason they went with a shorter range was to be able to keep it smaller, lighter, and cheaper. So you're getting a little bit less range out of that, but you're not paying nearly as much money for it. Then we've got the 14 to 24. I know Sony makes a 12 to 24 f4 lens that might be a little bit more comparable as far as range goes, but at this point Sigma doesn't make a 16 to 35 for the Sony system, so I thought it would still make sense to put it in here with it. Now, as much as going from 14 to 16 to 17 might not seem like a big deal, it actually gives you quite a bit more width on that 14mm than you'd think. And same thing going from the 24 or 28 all the way up to 35, these two actually get quite a bit more zoomed in. So when considering these, you want to make sure you think about how wide of a range you actually want. The 16 to 35s will give you the widest range, however, the Sigma actually goes the widest. The Tamron kind of suffers in this department as it has the narrowest focal range. As far as build quality goes, all of these are fantastically built. They all have some sort of mix of metal and plastic. All of them except for the Sony Zeiss have kind of a rubber coating on their focus and zoom rings. The Sony Zeiss has more of a metal feel throughout the whole thing. In fact, there's barely any plastic on that thing at all. Honestly, they all feel pretty good in the hand. They all feel like they're very well built. And as much as I like a good heavy lens, I think my favorite had to be the Sony G Master. When you put it on your camera, it just feels really good. A close second to that would be the Tamron, partially because of the weight of it, because it's a lot lighter, you feel less conspicuous. And also, if you don't like having a really big kit, it's a little bit smaller in your hands. I feel like I kind of go one way or the other. I either want it to be like big and heavy, or I want it to be like nice and sleek and small. But I think the Sigma was pushing it a little far for me on the big and heavy side. The two least expensive, the Tamron and the Zeiss, don't have any kind of extra buttons, no manual focus switch or focus hold button or anything, whereas the Sigma and the G Master both have a focus switch and a custom button. On the Sigma, we've got the focus switch there, and then we've also got the AFL button. I'm pretty sure you could customize that to whatever you want though. And then on the G Master, we've also got our focus switch and our custom button there. The Sony Zeiss barrel extends as you zoom out. So when it's at 16mm, it's longer than when it's at 35mm. The G Master is exactly the same. So when it's long, it's 16mm. When it's short, it's 35mm. Both the Sigma and the Tamron zoom internally, so the end of the actual lens itself doesn't get any bigger. You can see the glass moving inside, but technically it is all internal. That front filter space won't actually be moving, or in the case of the one that doesn't have a front filter, the whole front doesn't move on it. One little thing that people find a little odd about the Tamron is actually that the focus and zoom rings are backwards from what they normally are. So the zoom ring is actually closest to the end of the lens, and the focus ring is closest to the camera side. All of the other lenses are the opposite of that, but you do get used to it after a while. And of course, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The Sony Zeiss kind of sticks out amongst the bunch, and it's pretty obvious why. It's the only one of the four that's an f4 lens and doesn't have that f2.8 aperture. So right away when people are looking at these, they're gonna notice that and they're gonna think, okay, well maybe I don't want that f4. But it's also got something that none of the other lenses have, which is optical steady shot, aka stabilization inside the lens. So you might not be able to get that f2.8 shallow depth of field, but if you are a video shooter on something like the a6400 and you want to use this lens on it, that's why I bought it for my a6400 that doesn't have stabilization in it, having something with OSS in it really makes a huge difference for handheld shots. Some might even argue that OSS is better than the in-body stabilization that's in things like the a7 III. So this could be handy even for people with full frame cameras. And if you're talking about photography as well, having OSS will allow you to slow down your shutter speed just a little bit more so you can get a little bit more exposure. So it makes up for that difference in aperture just a little bit. I know it's not a huge thing, but it does help a little bit. Now, one other thing I did was an autofocus test in video. I basically just wandered back and forth to and from the camera to see if they could keep tracking my face, which lens performed the best, that kind of thing. And I was honestly not really surprised to find out that all of them performed pretty darn well. It seems like even the third-party lenses for Sony E-mount these days are getting it pretty good. I did notice that on the Sigma, if you look close to the edge, it actually is kind of pumping and it looks like it's warping the edges of the screen. Now, I don't know if that's just because it's a little bit wider than the other ones are, or if it's something specific to the focusing mechanism in this. So if you're doing something where your subject is constantly running towards and away from you, maybe that might be an issue. Generally, I found if I was just standing still, it didn't seem to have any kind of a problem. It wasn't doing that when I wasn't moving. Having watched back the footage, I honestly thought that the Tamron probably performed the smoothest as far as focusing. All four lenses had no problem using face detection and generally following along. On the photography side, I do notice that the third-party ones, the Tamron and the Sigma, both struggle a little bit more in low light to catch what they want in focus, just a little bit more hunting and a couple more missed shots here and there than the two Sony ones. But I'm really splitting hairs there. They still perform really well. Now, as far as the image quality of these, again, I can't go into a super crazy amount of detail. I was really surprised actually to find that the Tamron really kept up against all of the other lenses, considering all the other ones are so much more expensive. All of them have some kind of vignetting when you're wide open at wide apertures. They're all pretty darn sharp in the center, and they're a little bit softer in the corners. And then as you stop down, they get better. It's pretty standard stuff, and I would stack any of these up against each other and feel pretty good about it. Now, that being said, this is kind of just a general comparison, and I have left some links in the description that have some more reviews of these lenses where you can go and check out some of that stuff. But for my general use, I found that all of them performed really well. All right, before we talk about which lens you might want to choose out of these, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Artlist. Artlist is a music licensing platform made by filmmakers for filmmakers. All the music that you heard in this video comes from their annual subscription plan, like this, and this, and this. With thousands of new songs and a full year of unlimited downloads, you can find exactly the music that you need for your project. One of my favorite things about Artlist, and one of the reasons why I've been using it for a while now, is because I can use it not only in my online content, but also for commercial projects without any kind of extra hassles or fees or anything like that. Music licensing can be kind of an expensive and complicated mess, but it doesn't have to be, and that's really where Artlist shines. If you want to try Artlist out, go click the link in the description, go check it out. Thank you so much to Artlist for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the question is, if they all perform so well and they all have a little bit of a different set of features, which one do you get? I'm just gonna say it right now, my personal recommendation for most people would be to go with the Tamron 17-28 f2.8 for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's the lightest and the smallest, and personally that makes a big difference for me. I like to carry more gear, but I don't want it to be heavier, I don't want it to weigh me down too much, and that gives me some versatility with some great quality, and it's smaller. And the second reason is pretty obvious, it's $900. It's so much less expensive than the other ones. We got $1,350, $1,400, and $2,200. This is more than 2 times what that is. So the $1,300 difference between the Tamron and the G Master, you could pretty much buy the Zeiss too if you wanted. Speaking from personal experience, having both of these is a little bit redundant, but my other recommendation would be probably for the G Master if you're the kind of professional photographer or videographer that needs to just have the top quality glass. You're okay to spend a whole bunch of money on it and you want no compromise. The G Master is probably the way to go. It's going to work the best with the system because it's Sony making it. There's always just going to be something about buying a Sony lens for a Sony camera that I think is a good choice. I think the 14-24 has a specific place too if you're someone who does a lot of interiors or you do architecture and you really need it to be as wide as possible while still maintaining incredible quality. This is Sigma Art series, by the way. Then it might make sense to go with the Sigma. Again, we're talking $800 cheaper than the G Master as well. So value-wise, it's still really not too bad. And then unfortunately, in my last place, the Zeiss F4. The only place I could really recommend this against the other ones is if you're shooting APS-C, you need a reasonably wide lens, let's say for vlogging or something like that, and you need something that has OSS in it. But even that being said, I probably would suggest something with an even wider range, something like the 18 to 105 F4. You're still getting F4. It's really not that much bigger than this one, and it's significantly cheaper too. The poor Sony Zeiss. All that being said, the quality that comes out of this thing, it is still Zeiss glass. Let's remember that. So this is really, really nice quality. It's just when you've got the other options, it's hard to recommend this one. But as always, I want to hear what you have to say. What do you think of these 4 lenses? If you could only choose one, which one would it be and why? Leave a comment below, and on your way down there, hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure to hit that bell so you get the notifications when I upload new videos. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Artlist for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you next time.